And our next guest is one of those rock stars in the Minnesota legislature that could sit down with a few members of Congress and say, here's how you do this, folks. You draw a line in the sand with some principles, with some foundation of beliefs, like we're not going to raise taxes, not in a slow economy, not when businesses are leaving and the economy's sluggish and everything else. And one against Mark Dayton, whose signature issue was raising taxes. So there is a way to follow. Our guest, Amy Koch, is the Senate Majority Leader in the state legislature in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hello, Amy. How are you? Welcome back.
Hey, it's great to be back, Scott. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'm reading Sid Hartman this morning, and he's trying to blame you and Kurt Zeller, saying, this referendum could be a deal breaker. Did you read Sidney this morning?
Oh, I've not read Sid yet, but I'll have to take a look at that.
So Here's the argument. I'll give you his argument. First of all, he says, I suggest Koch check with her Buffalo constituents on how she would fare in a future election if the Vikings, who are in the last year of the Metrodome lease, decide to move to Los Angeles or some other place if they can't finalize the deal. I agree with Ramsey County Commissioner Tony Bennett, who's been pushing hard for the Arden Hills site, that a referendum would kill the stadium proposal. And if there wasn't a referendum for the Twins target field, which has been such a major success, why have one for the Viking Stadium? If a referendum took place and voters defeated the tax increase proposal, believe me, it's a cinch the Vikings would move. And he goes on to say, we can blame Koch and Zellers for trying to kill a perfect site for a stadium, blah, blah, blah. Your response?
Well, I mean, I don't buy that the referendum would automatically kill the stadium. For local option sales tax, which is what they're proposing in Ramsey County for the stadium, that's the requirement that we have is that there's a referendum. Yes, we did waive it for the Twins, and I understand Sid's argument there. We did waive it. I didn't support that. And so, but my point is I think there should be a referendum. We have to, we'll continue to discuss this, but I feel like the voters, they deserve an opportunity to weigh in on this. I don't think it automatically kills it. In fact, I think the Vikes are a huge asset to the state. I want to keep them here. I'm just trying to, get to a proposal where people can feel like, they have some skin in the game. I think Minnesotans, they love their Vikings. They want them to stay. We just have to get a proposal together that folks can, feel comfortable with. So that was my point, and I would feel comfortable if Ramsey County had a referendum.
Now, or some would say, well, isn't that why you elect county commissioners? And I'm curious what you think about it. I'm personally of the opinion, erring on the side of allowing citizens to weigh in, and if you're talking about a tax that's going to be there for a long time to fund this, that probably is an appropriate time to have a check on the pulse of where citizens are at on a particular issue. But what would you say to people say that's why you elect commissioners? Let them decide whether or not to raise the sales tax.
Well, right, and we do have that discussion. We have that ongoing discussion because, as I said, it is a requirement of all, whether it's cities or counties, that they have to get approval by their voters. And so you can have that argument, but as you stated, this is a big project. This is a big deal. It's going to be very important to Ramsey County. It's going to be very important to the state of Minnesota, and it is going to be long term. And so, asking that the voters weigh in, I just think it gives some, accountability to the process.
Politically, is this dangerous? I mean, I've heard people say, hey, the governor's pushing this. A lot of people want this. We don't want the Republican majority to be known as the Republican majority that presided over the loss of the Vikings. Would you agree that's a politically dangerous territory?
All right. And again, Scott, the Vikes are an asset. I want to keep them. I want to get a bill that can pass through the legislatures. If I want to see a bill. What I'm concerned with is I want to make sure that there's support in the legislature. It's something that folks can get behind, and we absolutely don't want the Vikes to go anywhere. I want to work with them, and I want to keep them here in Minnesota. We just have to work hard and get a proposal that folks can feel comfortable with.
Here's where I'm a little confused. If there is a referendum, a vote of Ramsey County, and they say no, and that ultimately leads to a deal blowing up, wouldn't the residents of Ramsey County be the ones that ultimately would have weighed in and be, quote unquote, responsible for the Vikings leaving?
And I don't presuppose that the folks in Ramsey County would absolutely say no. I think that, there are residents that I've spoken to in Ramsey County that are both on both sides of that issue. So I think kind of presupposing that is not accurate, and they're because there are communities that they understand that this would be a great value to them. So I think that folks are saying this killed a deal. I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that.
And by the way, even Maury Lanning is saying that, right? He's saying, I think this puts the kibosh on the stadium project. The Vikings will be sold and they will move.
No, I don't know. I haven't seen what Maury said about it. I just don't think that that's deal breaker. I want to keep the Vikings here in the state of Minnesota. I think they're an asset. I think there's certainly a value to having an NFL team here.
And by the way, when you talk about wanting a referendum, wanting the citizens ultimately to have a say in Ramsey County, would that be just part of the deal to say, okay, we're going to go along with this, and there's whatever the apparel tax or the fan tax, so to speak, and there's then the Vikes themselves have to put in a piece, and we're talking about obviously the contribution from Ramsey County to host this. Would this be a provision of any kind of a deal? Let's say there must be a vote. Is that what you're saying here, or would you say the Ramsey County officials could decide that? You're not giving them the option of deciding whether or not to do a referendum. You're saying you want a deal, then you have to ask your citizens, basically.
I'm actually not. I'm not putting together this deal at this point, Scott. I was talking yesterday, and the issue came up on the Viking Stadium, as it always does. And I said I'd like to see a referendum. That was something that I wanted to see with the Twin Stadium, and that was something I'd like to see with this. And it's not necessarily a caucus position. This is what I would like to see. Ultimately that would that's part of the discussion that we have to have in putting together any kind of proposal. And there's timing and there's all kinds of issues that go into it. There's lots of details in this deal that have to be worked out yet, on the state side, on the county side, and on the Viking side. And
so in other words, you're saying, hey, I'd like it. Kurt Sellers has said the same thing. See, be a good idea, but that could be as simple as voicing support for saying, I want a referendum, think there ought to be a referendum, right. And not making it part of the deal or whatever.
Right. Well, for me, I'd like to see that. I support that. I think that that's what I was saying yesterday. And I think that, folks should weigh in on that. That's the whole point of why we're elected to go there.
And again, is the right mix of dollars from the team, the county, the overall apparel tax or whatever? You like at least the framework of the deal at this point, Amy?
Well, I think that's a little bit still moving. There's some movements, I think, still from the team potentially, and I'd like to see, what the state end is coming for. I mean, obviously, we have a vested interest. We should be involved in the infrastructure, the roads, and so I need to still look at whatever proposals put together, whatever the mix is, and see what exactly is being covered by the county and the state end and the Vikings.
Sounds like we might be
right now, Scott. If the mix is right.
It sounds to me like we might be seeing a boogeyman that doesn't exist here, saying our preference is this, but all these people saying this could be a deal breaker and obstacles are emerging and everything else. So
yeah, I was amazed at that. Another obstacle. I wasn't saying it's that bill doesn't go forward without that. I said I would like to see a referendum. I'd like to see the folks of Ramsey County be able to weigh in.
I know how odd it is for the media to hyperventilate on something, but we're trying to set the record straight, and you helped us do that today. Good to talk to you, Amy. Keep fighting. Take care.
I appreciate it, Scott.